And welcome into another edition of the Hustle Show podcast for this Hustle Short on Monday, October 30th, as we get ever so close to November here. I am Mark Zinno, joined as always on Mondays by my good friend Brian Power. Follow him on Twitter at BrianPower_wins. I'm at Mark Zinno, MarkZinno. Don't forget, tomorrow we have $2 Capper Tuesday coming up. Brian Power will be part of that special right here on WagerTalk. So we appreciate you guys following along here every single day on WagerTalk TV and with the Hustle Show podcast. But as Brian and I always do, we will break down the Monday Night Football card. We got a little World Series talk, Game 3 between the D-backs and Rangers coming up as well. And Brian, since you and I have had a takeover on Mondays for the venerable Kelly in Vegas and the ever irreplaceable Chris Thurston, as we take over the Mondays here, you and I have found that the prop market has been kind to us. It's not broke. Let's not try to fix it. So we will look at props again, once again, for Monday Night Football. BP, where are you going?
Yeah, I mean, we've had quite the run here with these Monday night props. And it's funny, it always feels like we attack the game in a similar fashion, come up with a different prop, and they both win. Last week, you had, it was Brandon Ayuk longest reception over, correct? Is that about right? Yep. Okay, you cashed that. I had George Kittle over his receiving total. Both of those hit. The previous week, we had looked at the Chargers receiving core. I had Keenan Allen over receptions. You had him.
Josh,
I forgot you had the other. Over his receiving yards. Yeah.
Yep.
Now, I believe the plan tonight is to look at the same player, but go in different directions. So this should be fun. Now, looking at Raiders and Lions for Monday night, let's back up just a second, Mark. Full disclosure, I've got the Lions -2 as the second leg of a teaser. The first leg on the Chargers hit last night. If you could find a -7, and that's where DraftKings currently has the Lions, I wouldn't fault you for laying the points. I don't have a ton of affinity for the Raiders. I have them power rated near the bottom of the league. It would stun me to see them win this game. Therefore, if it's something, I'm going to go back to the teasing option, though, which is what I did. If there's something already on next week's card that jumps out to you that you feel like teasing, I would pair that with the Lions down to -1, -1.5 tonight. Again, I just don't see the Raiders winning this. And on that note, okay, if our game script is correct, because I think you and I kind of look at this game the same way, that the Lions are going to win. So if that's true, it stands to reason that they'll be ahead most of the way, perhaps comfortably, and the Raiders aren't going to be able to run the ball much or very effectively. And that's nothing new for the Raiders, Mark, because they're actually dead last in the league in yards per carry at 3.0, yards per game, 68.6, and rushing DVOA, -30.5%. this season. Other than that, they've run the ball very effectively, Mark. I mean, other than being last in every category there. And it just so happens they're facing a Lions defense that is top 10 defensively in all those metrics. So let's look at Raiders running back Josh Jacobs tonight and his rushing yardage total. I think I've tipped my hand where I'm going with this one. It's currently 63.5, -140, juice to the under. Now, on Thursday, I did a free play on the Tampa Bay running back under his rushing yardage total. That hit, another prop that hit. But Jacobs, I think under this number of 63.5 is a pretty safe bet. He's only averaging 49.6 yards per game, so this number looks high to begin with. He's only gone over 63.5 twice, and those games were against bad teams, the Patriots and the Packers, games the Raiders won. Again, I don't think the Raiders are winning tonight, so it's not going to be a lot of running on with Jacobs. Off the bad loss last week, Mark, I think the Lions are probably coming out angry, dare I say a little aggressive. I still have the Lions power rated as a top 10 team, despite the bad showing in Baltimore. Add it all up, I believe Josh Jacobs is going under 63.5 rushing yards tonight. That is my official lean for the show today.
Yeah, listen, not a good talk about game script and how this game is going to unfold here. One of the things that has been consistent here when you talk Josh Jacobs' performance, in the games where he's been effective as a runner, you know what has happened? The Raiders have had a lead at halftime. In fact, the 3 games they've won, they've had a lead at halftime. The 4 games they've lost, you know what they haven't had at halftime? A lead. Now, if you and I agree here that the Lions, after being demolished last week by the Ravens, should come out with extra focus and extra energy, especially at home in front of a Monday night crowd. I can't remember the last time the Lions held a Monday night game at home, no less. So you know you're going to get a lot of energy in that building for when they play. I would think that the Lions would be able to score early and force the Raiders to play from behind. So where does that involve Josh Jacobs? If he's not running, what's the other thing Josh Jacobs has done well? And that's be a target in the receiving game here. Now, taking a look at his number, his receptions prop is 3.5. If you look at Josh Jacobs' game logs from this year, okay, when you talk about target share first, because whenever you're looking at a receptions prop, you always have to look at targets. If are they going to get the requisite number of targets to be able to go over the number? He did not get at least 5 targets in 2 games this year. The opener game against Denver on the road, where he only got 3, and last week on the road against Chicago in a game that they got blown out, and also in a game with a backup quarterback in Brian Hoyer. Jimmy Garoppolo coming back tonight. If you look at the games that Jimmy Garoppolo has started for the Las Vegas Raiders, the target share in those 5 games between was 6, 5, 11, 5, and 5. So clearly he's being targeted in the passing game. If the Raiders are trailing like I expect them to be after half, the only way Jacobs really gets in the game is through the passing game. He has gone over this 3.5 3 times this year, all of them coming in that 5-game span. And he landed on 3 once against Pittsburgh. So I feel like this is a spot here where Jacobs may be used more in the passing game with Jimmy Garoppolo coming back than necessarily in the run game. The Lions have an excellent run defense, second best in the league, allowing just 76 yards per game on the ground. You can't take Josh Jacobs out of the game altogether. You've got to find a way to get him in. What's an extension of the running game? Dump offs to the running back, passes to the running back. I think Josh Jacobs here over 3.5 receptions is a way to go about looking at a place where he can provide value for the Raiders, try to keep them in this game, and certainly clear a very favorable number here at 3.5. So Brian, let's go over 3.5 receptions for Josh Jacobs tonight against the Detroit Lions.
Hey, we're correlated, right? Let's just hope that they're throwing the ball to Jacobs, not handing the ball off to him, and then we can go 2-0 again. You mentioned you did not know the last time the Lions hosted a Monday night game while you were giving your excellent breakdown there. I've decided to look that up. The answer is 2018. So it's been 5 years. So
5 years.
So you throw in the fact that they're off that humiliating loss in Baltimore last week. This is their first Monday night home game in 5 years. I think the Lions come out with their hair on fire likely tonight. And it's going to be, it should theoretically be a strong start. And you mentioned Garoppolo being back. Remember, last time the Raiders were on Monday Night Football, I think was the first time you and I did one of these Monday hustle shorts together. I said Garoppolo would throw an interception. It was a pretty cheap price. He did throw an interception. That INT prop tonight, Mark, minus 175 last I looked. So we got ahead of the market a few weeks ago when it came to Jimmy G tossing the ball to the wrong side.
I would tell you this much, that, and I'm just looking at a couple of different places here. You know, one other thing about the game script that I think that we could play in here, if you're not comfortable laying the 7.5, one way to attack this, you know me, BP, I'll cut the game in half if I have to. Lions in the first half, minus 4.5. I'm seeing about even money. Now, granted, that's essentially the same as being ahead by a touchdown. But with the Lions defense and the Raiders continuing to struggle to get past 20 in any game this year, you'd have to think that if the Lions get to 14 in the first half, they should feel fairly safe here. Now, 14-10 gets you bit in the backside by the hook, but nonetheless, I would feel pretty confident if the Lions can get 2 touchdowns in the first half, they can cover that 4.5. That would be another way I might attack this game here. Just play the first half. If the Lions come out energized and score early and the Raiders are playing catch up early, that it might work in their favor.
Yeah, and correct me if I'm wrong, the Raiders have gone over 20 points just once, and it was only because of the late safety against New England, right?
That's correct.
Wow.
So
yeah,
again,
not a team that scores a lot of points.
And they might not even get to 10 in the first half if they get to 7 or 3 at all. But let's just see how the rest of the game shakes out. All right, that'll do it for Monday Night Football. Let's pivot. Game 3 of the World Series here in Major League Baseball, tied up at 1 apiece, and we get the series shifting to Arizona. Brandon Pfaadt is on the mound for the D-backs against Max Scherzer. You know, when you and I were talking earlier about this game and just kind of looking at it, one of the more interesting props out there in the game itself is the total outs by the pitchers. Brandon Pfaadt sitting at 13.5, Max Scherzer sitting at 14.5. So Pfaadt would need to go 4 2/3 to go over. Scherzer would need to go a full 5 innings here. Scherzer has not gone a full 5 innings in any of his starts as coming back from the DL here, and both of them in the postseason. So what do you believe about what his likelihood is that he's going to get through 5 here against a D-backs team that has hit better at home than it has on the road? Both times that Max Scherzer was in, BP, I pointed out I like the first 5 over in both those games. Are sitting at 4.5 here. It might be the way to play it again. Again, not broken, don't fix it. Where do you see it?
Yeah, I mean, he got hammered in his first start back, did Scherzer. He's only gone 6 2/3 innings total in the postseason. Now, obviously, because he pitched game 7 in the ALCS, it was a quick hook. So he gave up 2 runs. He lasted just 2 2/3. They got him right out of there. They didn't want any trouble. Something I did not have on my 2023 postseason bingo card, Mark, was Brandon Pfaadt essentially being even money against Max Scherzer in a World Series game. I mean,
Yeah.
that's crazy to me, but it's where we're at. And you and I have discussed this, just you and I. We've discussed this on the show before. The thing with Arizona, virtually every one of their starting pitchers is significantly better at home than on the road. I mean, these home road splits have just been dramatic. Now, I know Merrill Kelly has been a lot better on the road his last 2 starts, but, Fott, we've seen him struggle on the road. We've seen Gallen struggle on the road. This one's in Arizona. Texas does not hit as well on the road as they do at home. The out prop, going back to what you brought up, is pretty interesting because does Bruce Bochy, is he a little leery after seeing his bullpen get beat up in game 2? Does he want to maybe not go to them as quickly? Thus, the leash isn't as short on Scherzer. Eventually, you got to leave Scherzer out there. It is interesting that Scherzer's outs prop is more than Fott's. The interesting thing is with Fott is they've played the analytics, Arizona, in his, like, he's been pitching, out of his mind, and they've pulled him despite it. They don't want him going the third time through the order. I know that drives some people crazy, but there's a lot of numbers to suggest that a team, should play it that way. I do not have a client play in game 3 right now, Mark. This is a hard one to call. I did have the first 5 over in game 1. That was a very easy win.
Mm-hmm.
I do kind of lean Arizona, I think, right now, but I don't know, because I do think regression's coming for 5.
Well, that's it. I mean, that was the next sentence out of my mouth. Here's the whole handicap: is it depends on how much you believe Brandon Pfaadt can be a guy who, over his last 3 starts, has allowed just 2 earned runs in the course of 16, 17 innings. So, it's hard for me to get on the Pfaadt train and back the fact that he's going to be able to do this again, because he was so bad for a better part of this season. Now, when you got to September, he did have some decent starts in there, but still, I mean, this is, I guess you give credit to Torey Lovullo, the D-backs manager, for continuing to have faith in Pfaadt all season long after how much he got rocked early on, because his ERA was Pfaadt for a better part of the season, like in the 7s. So it was not pretty to watch. Part of me thinks that, you know what? It's just one of those weird things where you just ride the train here in the postseason and get behind them. The other way I looked at this, and I told you, BP, it sounded as crazy as it sounds, D-backs first 5 on the run line -0.5 at plus money. I saw plus 118, plus 120 out there. Again, the D-backs obviously hit better at home. Scherzer has not been sharp, so they could have score 2 or 3 runs here in the first 5. And Pfaadt doesn't necessarily have to be all that fantastic. He wasn't great his last start out against the Phillies, but still only managed to give up 2 runs in 4+ innings. That should be enough to get home if Scherzer performs like we've seen him perform. So just because, again, I think you get a favorable price at plus money there, I think that's the other way I can look at tonight's game and go, hey, let's run with the D-backs on the run line here instead of paying minus money and keeping the tire in a pocket flat out on the money line. On the money line, rather, on the first 5, lay the half run and get plus money. Chase some plus money. I think it's a favorable spot.
Well, that definitely is an interesting way to play it. And yeah, the way the postseason's gone, as crazy as it seems with this price, Pfaadt and Scherzer, I mean, if you're just looking at the postseason, that would be, I think, the sharp play there, especially with the plus price.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting for sure. Well, that'll do it for us here tonight. Again, make sure you follow him on Twitter at Bryan Power _wins. I'm at Mark Zinno. Full episode of The Hustle Show every Thursday. As always, you'll see it right here on the WagerTalk YouTube channel. Speaking of which, hit that like button, smash that thumbs up, and hit the subscribe button as well. Get alerted of all the betting content right here. Don't forget, tomorrow, $2 Tuesday here on WagerTalk. Bryan Power is one of the $2 Tuesday handicappers, so big promotion going on at WagerTalk. Make sure you guys check that out as well. I have a promo code going on this week, 50% off day packages or full season packages. Use Zinno50 over at Sports Memo, and you'll get 50% off everything. So anything from a daily package to a full season package, 50% off right now for me after another plus weekend in college football. And both the 4% and the 5% hit yesterday in the NFL. Dallas Cowboys cashed us nicely. That was a no-sweat cover, huh? That felt nice.
Yeah.
Felt very nice.
It did.
Don't get those off.
Yeah, it was the best of times, the worst of times. Wasn't that Dickens that wrote that like 200 years ago or whatever? But I lost my 5% play on Sunday. It was actually just a bad call. On the Eagles team total under. They could have probably scored 50 if they hadn't fumbled in the red zone. But I went 5-2 overall as I just continue to cash teaser after teaser after teaser. I won 3 teasers in the NFL yesterday. Yes, 3. I also went 2-0 in the EPL. So it was 5-2 overall Sunday, 14-6 last 20 all sports. And I have a 3-pack in the NBA.
Oh,
tonight.
Look at that. I also have 2 NBA plays up tonight as well. And a Monday Night Football play as well for you guys. Again, check it out over at sportsmemo.sm.buzz/MZ. He's WT.buzz/BP. You guys can get all that stuff. And I did hear that you were quite the tease before I met you, so there is that.
Yeah, hey-o.
Hey-o, we will call it a day here again. Full episode of The Hustle Show on Thursday. Thank you guys for watching. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon and evening. Go cash some tickets. We'll talk to you tomorrow.